Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Me, I'm a roughneck. Well, I was a roughneck. 20 years ago. A little too old, too slow now. Besides, I got $1 now. I don't have to be a roughneck, you see. Married, got a nice home. You have to meet my wife. Hey, Mike. Her name's Maxine, but she likes to be called Mike. Mike! I guess she's busy out in the kitchen someplace. Besides, she doesn't hear very well. Shame, too. She's so pretty and everything. Well, you'll meet her. Sit down. I was saying, I was a roughneck. Well, no, that doesn't mean exactly what you think it means. A roughneck is an oil field worker. Specifically, a guy on a drilling crew. You call them roughnecks like you call a station hand on the railroad a gandy dancer or a garage hand a grease monkey. Same time, you work around a drilling crew for a while, you're gonna be a roughneck in every sense of the word, boy. The derrick floor or Fourble board's no place for a guy with a bow tie, 'cause when you have to fool around with drilling holes that go farther down in the ground than it is from the top of Pike's Peak down to sea level, oh yeah, sure they do. At the time I was a roughneck, we got this one well down to 7,313 feet. That was a record. But last May, Pure Oil brought one in out in Spring Valley in Wyoming at 14,309 feet. That, friend, is almost 3 miles. Quite a hole, that, huh? Sure, I don't think there's an oil man in the world that don't wonder one time or another what's down there besides rock and oil and gas. Oil that's made out of the trees that died 20 million years ago. Oil that's made out of dinosaur bones. Oil that's maybe made out of the flesh and blood of men, maybe, that beat each other to death with a stone axe, ate saber-toothed tiger for lunch. Yeah, you get to wondering. You look at the cores that come up from way down there, and sometimes there's little shells, trilobites mostly, that was alive when Manhattan Island, where New York is, was under half a mile of ice. We found something once, me and Billy Grunwald, and something found us. I'll tell you about it. Clear down to around 5,400 feet, we'd set casing that began to get water, so we had to stop drilling and cement off. Well, you see, when water begins to seep in the hole, you pull your drill pipe, then you let down a cementing shoe inside the casing, and you plug up the bottom of the hole, casing and all, with quick hardening waterproof cement. Then, when it's hard, you drill through the cement and go on down, and the cement outside the casing at the bottom keeps the water out. Well, we had the drill pipe all pulled and racked. The cement was setting, see? So we were shut down, waiting for it to harden. We'd been coring just before. Well, you see, a core drill is hollow, and as the bit digs down, it stuffs the drillings up inside it, so when you pull it out, you got a sample of the kind of stuff you're going through, and a geologist can tell a lot from that. So there was nobody around the rig except me that night. The rest of the crew'd gone into town. I was toasting some pork chops over the porch for myself when I heard a car pulling up. It was Billy Grunwald, the geologist, and I give him a hello. "Hi, Billy. Come and have a pork chop." He asked where everybody was. I told him they all went to town. I'm the whole crew. He said he'd had 3 blowouts between there and Oxnard. Would have come about 3 if not for his tough luck. He said he was dead hungry, starved. I said I got 7 pork chops and bread and some coffee, kind of. He had a bottle in the car. We was gonna have a banquet. "Where was that core?" he asked. That's what he came up there to look at. I said it was back there on the bench and we'd look at it after supper. Then there came this strange noise. "Didn't I say I was all alone?" he asked. "I thought I heard somebody talking." "I don't see anybody," I said. Keep an eye on that pork chop or you won't have any supper." I'd finished cementing that morning. Last tower only made about 10 feet of hole, so it got shut down before we were flooded out of house and home. "Funny about that water," said Billy. "Oughtn't to have been any at that level, according to his figuring. Salt water right out of the bottom of the ocean." Last core he looked at, he'd have sworn we were getting into shale, but we hadn't seen none yet from the cuttings. You know, you never can tell what's down there. You get it all mapped and plotted out, all the strata, and all you know is what comes out of the hole. "I'd like to go down there sometime," I said, "if I was little enough." Billy said we'd never be able to get me down a hole. I wasn't near skinny enough. I told Billy to stay and finish his supper, but he wanted to go up and look at the cores. Said to put another pork chop on the fire for him. As Billy headed off, we heard owls screeching somewhere near the top of the derrick. He said he wished they'd keep quiet. Then he heard something else, like the sound of metal scraping. I said, "What's eating you?" He said he could have sworn there was somebody up there on the Fourble board, standing against the stands of drill pipe. I just told him he was crazy, that there was nobody up there. The pipes were just racked crooked. One of them had slipped. "What you so jittery about?" "Come on back and eat your pork chop," I said. Billy said he was just naturally that way, always scared of the dark. He hated to be a baby, but he couldn't help it. I don't know. Everybody's scared of something. Me, spiders scare the tar out of me. Black widows. Yeah, I knew how he felt. Billy asked for another light and told me to go get the bottle of gin he'd left back in his car. So I picked up a flashlight. I turned around and went outside. I found the car and I got the bottle, and the floor of the derrick was all lit up, and when I saw a beam of light suddenly flash up toward the Fourble board, I laughed. Billy Grunwald and his ideas. Sure, I looked up. There wasn't a darn thing up there except the drill pipe racked against the fingerboard. "Oh, this Fourble board? Well, you've seen oil derricks or pictures of them. You know that little platform that runs around the outside of the derrick about halfway up? Well, that's the Fourble board. Well, you see, drill pipe comes in lengths, and you handle them with several lengths screwed together so as to save time getting them in and out of the hole. 2 lengths is a double, 3 is a treble, 4 is a Fourble. When you pull the pipe, you heist it up inside the derrick with the traveling block, which moves up and down from the crown block at the top of the derrick. Then, when a Fourble of pipe is pulled out, it's held in the rotary table. You break the joint with tongs, like a great big Stilson wrench, you see? Snub a cable that's fastened to the handle over the cat head on the drawworks, and that breaks the joint. Then you hold the tongs on the pipe, give the rotary table a few turns to unscrew it, you heist away with the traveling block and swing it over against the fingerboard, lean it against the derrick. The guy up on the Fourble board takes off the traveling block, and you do it all over again until you get all the pipe out. You see? Well, there wasn't anybody up on the Fourble board except a screech owl, and it flew away. So Billy turned his light off and I come on inside. And just as I come up the steps, he lets out a yell. I asked him what the matter was, and he said to come look. He was terrified, looking at something he had just dug out of the core. What he was holding was a gold ring, and it was all carved and filigreed just like jewelry. And there wasn't any kidding about it, it was real. Now that rock had come from a mile underground, and it had been a mile underground for 1,000,000 years. I wasn't done. I poked at the core of the rock that looked like a kind of petrified salami or something. And then it was my turn to pretty near jump out of my pants, because right alongside the place where Billy dug out the ring, there was a mud-covered but very unmistakable finger. I picked it up, and it was cold, and it was heavy, and it was solid rock. At least it felt like solid rock. And I looked at Billy, and Billy looked at me. He started to rub the mud off this here stone finger, and as he rubbed it, it began to disappear. He could still feel it, he said, but when the mud was gone, neither one of us could see it. And he dropped it to the derrick floor. It went clunk, and we couldn't find it any place. So you know what we done? We took that bottle, and we took it and finished it, Billy and me. We finished it in one slug apiece, and it was a full pint of bathtub gin that tasted just like so much well water to me. And then we sat down on the derrick floor, and we looked at each other. We didn't say a word. My eyes got heavier and heavier. The last thing I remember was I heard some kind of noise that seemed to be coming out from, well, the Fourble board, 80 feet above us. I shut my eyes for a minute, and I guess I went to sleep, and I had awful dreams. Black widow spiders crawling all over me with gold rings on their legs. Things I could hear but I couldn't see. Up on the Fourble board, Billy Grunwald climbing up the ladder outside the derrick in the moonlight. Faces looking at me. I couldn't figure out who they were. Then I was waked up by a horrible scream, a crash alongside me that shook the whole derrick. I opened my eyes to see Billy Grunwald lying on the floor 2 feet away with a broken neck in his left hand. Well, he put that gold ring on the little finger of his left hand, and the way his arms were spread out, his left little finger and the ring, they were both gone. Well, friend, I got out of there. I run down to where Billy had left his car, and I got in. I stepped on the starter, and then I couldn't get it to go. And I remembered after I pretty near run down the battery that Billy had taken a key. I wasn't going up there to go through a dead man's clothes to get it. So I sat there in the car, shivered all by myself till daylight. And then Ted and the crew came. Afterwards, a state cop and everybody in the world was asking me questions. Did me and Billy have a fight? Had we been drinking? Why was Billy on the Fourble board? Had I threatened him? Did he run up there to get away from me? I told the cop not to be a chump. Billy Grunwald and I were good friends. Well then, why'd I push him off the Fourble board? I didn't, I tell you. I wasn't up there. Well, what did he go up there for? I don't know. I was asleep. How did I know he was up there? I didn't say he was. Besides, how would he break his neck if he didn't fall from way up there? Ted said he thought it was just another accident, that the cops didn't have anything on me, and personally he didn't believe it. It was mighty mysterious, but we still had work to do. That cement was hard down there, and he wanted to start drilling again and was short-handed. They agreed to let me stay on until I ran in my pipe again, and then they could take me and ask me questions till they were blue in the face. We got rolling immediately. Happy was all set with the steel. Ted told me to go up on the Fourble board. What? I said. Not me, brother. I couldn't help but remember what had happened to Billy. Ted told me not to be such a boob. There's nobody up there to shove me overboard. I could put a safety line around me if I wanted to. And besides, I was getting paid to do what I was told, and we'd lost too much time already. So, okay, I go on the Fourble board. You can bet I took a good gander around before I did anything else. I couldn't see a thing. So I signaled to the driller to let down the traveling block, and he did. Came sailing down from up above. I was just reaching for it to pick up the first Fourble of drill pipe. It gave a big jerk, and the cable broke. It dropped and nearly pulled me off the Fourble board, and it landed right on top of Ted. If you have any idea what a guy looks like after 2 tons of metal land on him from 80 feet up, keep your ideas to yourself. Well, that was enough. 2 accidents in a row. The whole crew quit. They wasn't gonna wait for a third. And it was Ted's money that was paying off. There wasn't any more. And as far as I know, the abandoned derrick is still there. And that was 20 years ago. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. That traveling block was right in front of my face when it broke loose. It was hanging by a steel cable, 3/4-inch steel cable. And I saw that cable break right before my eyes. Look just like a piece of string when you snap it between your fingers. I could almost see the fingers. And you know what? There was something up there on the Fourble board with me. And so, a couple of days later, I came back. I don't know if there's anything in the world as desolate, as dismal, as dead-looking as an abandoned oil well rig. There it stands like a skeleton off on a deserted side road, and the bare yellow hills surrounding it, and it's the deadest thing you ever saw. I sat in my car for a long time looking at it. Everything was just the way we left it. I looked in at the floor. The smashed traveling block was there alongside the rotary table. There was a little mutter of steam from the boiler. That was all. Then I heard a tinkle of something as it hit the ground alongside me. I looked around. There wasn't a soul in sight. But at my feet was the gold ring that Billy Grunwald and I had found in the core of rock that came from a mile underground and from 1,000,000 years ago in time. And I heard a little sound, the sound of a kid crying. There wasn't any kid up there, but I heard it again, and it came from above my head, and I took out my revolver. I loaded it carefully. I started up the ladder to the Fourble board. Well, there wasn't anything up there, nothing I could see. There was a voice crying, the voice of a little kid. And there was a movement behind the rack of drill pipes, and I saw the pipe move, and I yelled, "Come out of there, whoever you are. Come out or I'll start shooting." Then the stand of pipes shivered, and I thought, what can it be that can handle a heavy pipe like jack straws? Then there was a crash. The whole stand of pipe fell over, and I just got out of the way in time. And I was alone on the Fourble board with a thing. I couldn't see it. I felt the platform tremble under my feet again as something moved toward me. I fired 2 or 3 shots, and nothing happened. I started backwards. I knew it was following me because I could hear it meowing like a cat. My feet tripped over something. I saw it was a big can of red lead that somebody had left up there. Without thinking, I picked it up and I threw it at the sound, and it splashed. And there it was. And I wish the face of a little girl, frightened, crying with hunger and terror, hands like a human being, and a finger missing from the left hand, and a body. Well, I'll tell you about that I told you how I'm scared of spiders, but I knew where it come from. It come from the bowels of the earth, come riding up on the drill pipe as we yanked it out of the well, come to an alien world, and it was lost. It stood there dripping with red paint, blood red from head to foot, like some horrible dream. And it put its hand on my arm. Its hand was stone, living, moving stone. And it looked into my eyes and mewed like a lost kitten. 20 years ago, I discovered many things about it. What it used for food, that it was deaf, that it was invisible and couldn't see people when it was invisible, that if you sprayed it with mud or paint or grease paint, makeup, then it could see people. And believe me, I didn't want to see its body. I could see that in my nightmares. But its face, I can't help wanting to see that pathetic little girl face. I'm afraid maybe I've fallen. Oh, but she's very beautiful. And when she's well made up, but making it up, rubbing grease paint on a stone face that looks at you and smiles, and it makes sounds like a lost kitten. I can disguise the body in long dresses. She can't hear very well, and when she's hungry, I have to stay out of her way. I found out what she likes to eat, remember? No, you sit still. Just sit still or I'll have to shoot you. Oh, there she is. Come on in, dear. Dinner's ready.
Excuse me, please. I'm laughing. I know it isn't polite. I can't help it. The funniest thing, wait until you hear it. Absolutely the funniest thing. Yes, I'll tell you. A hoax. He tried to play a hoax on me, telling me that it was an authentic record of their times and expecting me to believe. Now, wait a minute. Wait a moment. I'll start from the beginning. Really, I will. And then you'll laugh with me. I know that you will. Well, it started like this. An old man comes to my study a little while ago, a package under his arm, and he tells me that he's a student of the past. A past master of the humbug. That's what he meant. Wait until you hear it. So, he has this package under his arm, and he says to me breathlessly, "Kind sir, I've brought you the most wonderful relic of the past the modern world has ever known." "Really?" I said. "What are you talking about, and who are you?" He answers, "A lonely traveler, one who wanders in far-off places, far off places. That's what he told me. So I said, and is this what you are bringing me from one of those far off places? He nods his old head like a strutting rooster. He says, yes, indeed. You are the greatest living scholar of the history of the old world, so it is fitting that I bring this to you. Indeed, I said. And what have you got? Where did you find it? He says, I was walking through the mountains beneath which the great city once stood. Well, he said, as you know, thousands of years ago there was another civilization that reached great heights, and then... I know, I said. Certainly you're not going to teach me history, my ancient friend. He said, oh, no, indeed. I only meant to say what I found high in the mountains. It is a written record of that civilization, the first written record ever to be found. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I just looked at him. I said, have you gone out of your head with age, old man? Nothing is left of that prehistoric time. First the sea covered them when the dark planet swung close, and then the molten rock thrust up. It is only our theory that men had a civilization here before us. For answer, he tore the paper off the package. He said, look, these papers, reality, I tell you, high in the mountains, inside a piece of alabaster that must have protected it from the ravages of time, miraculously spewed out from the earth when the mountains rose up through the land. Look, sir, and read, a record of their times, a record of the ways of men 20,000 years before our civilization came into being. Yes, he said that, and I took the book. I took it in my hand and read. For a moment, I almost believed the fraud. And strange formations of letters and strange words and meaning, but clear enough to me, clear enough, the clearest fraud a faker ever tried to perpetrate. Let me tell you what was in that historical book he tried to tell me that he'd found, the old humbug. Listen to this. First, the book said that... No, wait until you hear this. First, the book said that the men of the past civilization fought about the land. You don't understand what I mean? I mean the world. They fought one another, maimed one another, bled one another over who owned what piece of the world. Did you ever hear such nonsense? They knew how large the world was, and they knew how many men were in it. But instead of dividing it up fairly or all owning together as one, they fought each other. Yes, bloody wars for years and years. Did you ever hear such humbug history? And that isn't all. The book said that they fought each other over race. Yes, race. Race. The book says the word means the difference between men. And then the book said that all men had the same origin. And yet... They killed each other over a difference that they admitted didn't even exist. What a fraud, that book. And a man walked that world for a little while and said, for the glory of God, peace on earth. And he spoke truth, and men listened and said, we believe, and... Then they went out to murder with bright music playing. Music, I tell you. And then a little man arose who said, for the glory of the state, war on earth. And he spoke lies, and men knew they were lies, and he knew they knew. But again, they went out to murder with the music playing. And here's the funniest. Other men saw what was happening, and they said, "Let them kill. It is not to our interest." And the flame of murder came closer, and still they said, "It is not our interest." as if the house were afire, and they said, "We shall not use water until we ourselves are burning." and here's the climax. The preposterous book said that these crazy people who filled the earth in those days had machines with which to fly through the air. Yes, really, through the air. But imagine the wonder if it were true. Speeding through the air like the birds. Great glistening machines to carry men to new wonders. But guess what the fraud of a book said that they did with them? You'll hold your sides when you hear. They loaded them up with horrible tearing things and flew up over the crowded places and dropped them. Yes, believe me, the humbug history tried to make me believe that was the truth. They struggled for centuries. Men studied, toiled, rivers of heartache. At least the book said so, trying to make a healthier world for their children to live in. And then they threw poison clouds down from the sky and killed them off in tens of thousands. They killed each other. They killed them all. Killed the children.